Hello and welcome to SHOWstudio. This is head-to-head Men's Fashion Week Paris Autumn Winter 18. I'm Mimma Viglezio and I have a new fantastic guest. Hello, Calum Knight.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Thanks for being here. I'm very happy to be discussing this with Calum for many reasons, but one being that he was in Paris, so he's followed the whole men's season this year, and so you have more of an inside opinion.
I think it is always interesting being between, because lots of people go, oh, if I was at the show, I would think this, and I would love it, or it'd be different. But actually quite often being detached from a show and seeing it online. I mean, obviously you miss a lot of things like how the clothes moved and all of that, but actually sometimes you get impressed with the set and all of that, and it does alter your opinion about the clothes.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it actually is a bit of a disguise for the clothes.
Also the movement or the stills.
Yeah.
I mean, I have done the shows and I've watched all the shows online. There's no comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, the movement on the model, the styling and everything, they change everything. But let's start. I would like to start discussing Dior Homme. Once because we talk a lot about Maria Grazia Chiuri and her appointment, and we don't talk as much about Chris Van Ash, who's been there a long time now, but also because I think his show, for me, was a little bit of a reaction to these ubiquitous street style and sportswear and, you know, all this, street style that we've seen everywhere. And he has, to my opinion, reproposed the classic suit in a modern way. So for me, it would be sort of the suit for people like you, for young, modern, upcoming, trendy kids. What do you think?
I think with what he did, it was really visually strong. So I wasn't actually at the show, but Georgie was, and the reaction to it was super strong. The suits are really beautiful, and also lots of the kind of more styling pieces. I mean, as a styled proposition, it's really cool and hits all those right notes completely. I mean, this that's coming down is super lovely, the way it's styled with these baggy pants and these super... I think that's actually a one piece put to look like two, and it's all based on kind of ravers from the early 90s and how they used to dress. But then the fact that they've grown up, and there's a really lovely styling story behind it and creative story. But I mean, I wear a lot of suit jackets, and they're all my dad's. And so this is
you have a good collection of them if they're your dad's,
So this is like an 80s com piece, which I can't do it up, but I can wear it undone and all of that. So I mean, personally, I've never been looking for a new suit. I actually have always been going back to the old, but it was interesting.
But if you had to, would you consider this collection?
Yes, I absolutely would. I think some of it was a mix between a single and a double-breasted, and it had two buttons here, but then looked more single-breasted. There were definitely some propositions. However,
do you feel a little bit this sportswear fatigue?
I mean, you can see it. What I was saying earlier about being kind of a show being disguised by its set and its styling. So I didn't go to the show, but I went to the showroom, and I was super excited. And this happened a few times over Paris. I went to the showroom, and I was actually extremely disappointed with what I saw, because when you see the looks, not all together, but on hangers for each look, there wasn't a single piece.
What about those beautifully tailored jacket that maybe we should say for those that haven't read about it, that Chris went to the women's wear tailor, Les Petites Mains, who make the famous Dior bar jacket, and asked them to come to him and
work with him on this collection.
Yeah, and make them into a men's silhouette. But so, as we can see, the waists are very small, the shoulders are a little bit wider, but it's not oversized, it's still close to the body. So when you see those jackets hanging in the showroom, they're disappointing?
They didn't carry any particular kind of... I couldn't see it being anything else than something that really excites me. Excites me in fashion is when you see a thing and see a collection and you think, oh, I'd want to pull that collection from that jacket from this designer and put it with this. It was very much in its own world. Even the way it was presented, it was literally presented on a single Stockman mannequin with a reference image with the original bar jacket image, and it seemed like this is what this is, and it was completely separate to the rest of the story that was available to buy. And it was beautiful. It's an incredible thing to do. However, it doesn't feel accessible. It didn't feel like they wanted anyone to touch it. It felt very old in the way that it was presented. And the whole idea is this is a new one, but then when it was in the showroom, it was completely separated off from the rest of the collection.
So could you imagine it hanging in somewhere like Machine A?
No,
or it would it doesn't have anything to do?
It didn't feel like that's what they wanted for it, and it didn't feel as if they wanted it to be interpreted as anything else, which I thought was super odd, as that's what I imagined everyone would want.
But do you think it was a mistake, an involuntary mistake, or a strategy?
It might have. I think it was to try and garner the press attention that it deserved, was to put it on the side. But it doesn't. It also doesn't feel like necessarily a shape that people can wear, and it still feels too
feminine.
It feels too feminine.
Yeah, but that goes well with the gender fluidity and
it's not,
you know, for me it's a little bit his take on the trend of mixing women and boys and girls, and you know.
I mean, I don't think that there's no problem with that, but then when with feminine garments at all, I wear a lot of feminine garments. I mean, I have an old Yoji skirt, for instance, which is floor length, and I wear it, and it's lovely. But then when you've got this super hard collection, and you're trying to garner a certain attention from people my age that are trying to look quite hard and all of that, and then you have this super feminine jacket that isn't being at all interwoven to a very hardline raver collection, it just felt very separate and very odd, and I couldn't work it out. It seemed super strange.
But couldn't this be, I know it's not your world, but maybe it could be the modern alternative of a suit for people that work in places where they still have to wear a suit, i.e. lawyers and bankers, and you know, there are still places where, believe it or not, men are asked to come in a suit. So instead of going with the old-fashioned, or beautiful, but you know, like tailor-made Savile Row suit, they go with something more modern that is wearable without a tie, that is wearable with baggy trousers. So, you know.
I mean, I hope that's what they're trying to do with it.
I think so. And I think they're catering to that.
I mean, that would, but it didn't feel from the show and from the showroom. It felt they were trying. It felt they were trying to get the kids hooked on this kind of that it wasn't a logo, that shape, the early '90s raver shape. They've got them all their necklaces and all of that. Trying to get them into that, and then the suits
were secondary.
Were just secondary. And I've asked to pull up the web store if we could have it shown, because you can see all the suits from last season, and actually they don't change much.
Can we see? Yeah, thank you.
They're still suits, and there's very little.
They still look like suits. You're right.
Suits. They're not, and they're not trying. The way that what they do commercialize from each collection is they do skateboards now, and they do headphones, and they do messenger bags that people can.
Because that's where what sells.
Yeah, well, because also it's cheaper and kids can afford that. So they put all the Logomania stuff.
But hold on, in this e-commerce, probably we don't see the new collection because the new collection is already.
So this is from the last collection, but each collection. I mean, so obviously it won't have the bar jackets in it yet. And it'll be interesting to see what they do.
It's very classic.
It's very classic, and Chris Van Ash has been doing stuff that isn't so classic with suits for a long time, and that still
Isn't that the problem with many designers and many houses where we see things online and in the press that it's so inviting and so futuristic and whatever, and then
can't get hold of it.
You go to the store and it's just good old same.
No.
But you were telling me something that I thought very interesting before about how Chris has been there with 3 different designers for couture and women's.
Yeah, so he came with Raf. He was Raf's
choice.
Well, he'd worked with Raf before, and he was kind of, everyone said he's the next Raf, and he's all of that. So he came with Raf, as far as I'm aware, and he stopped doing his own brand. He used to have his own brand. That was actually that was really good, and I think did quite well. And he stopped that to do. He did it a bit whilst he was at Dior, and I don't think he could juggle both. Or he didn't want to, or who knows. Yeah. So he stopped that.
He was making enough money at Dior.
Yeah, he was happy. And then obviously Raf left, and then you have Serge and Lucy, who took the house into a completely different direction.
For 2 or 3 collections, right?
3 collections, I
think they were doing good job, but they were not famous.
Yeah, no, then, I mean, now Lucy's got
Jill Sander,
which is incredible.
And Serge got Calum.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so they both played somewhere.
Yeah, they both been placed, which is lucky, because sometimes, you know,
someone noticed them because they were very good, so yeah.
And then now you've got Maria Grazia. So what I thought was interesting, what I took away more than trying to present a new feminine or new kind of modern look for a man in a suit, what I thought it was, is that Chris Van Ash actually doesn't have kind of a women's wear thing to juggle up to kind of try and make his clothes look good next to you. It's not like you're doing a whole proposition because he's been doing it with so many designers. So instead of going with what the house at that moment is presenting, he's trying to tie it into Dior by looking back to the archives and saying, I am still designing menswear Dior, but I can't keep up with this constant change of designer. So I'm going to go back to the original staples and look at that.
It makes sense, yeah.
And that's a way of tying it into a house. Because before, my favorite Chris collection for Dior is Spring Summer 17. This one, I think, is absolutely fab. And it didn't get the attention it deserved. But that didn't look anything like what Serge and Lucy were doing. There's nothing. And it didn't particularly look like Dior. It could have been a lot of people, but it was incredible.
But that's what the next point I wanted to make with you is that I think that a great designer, especially when he has half of a house, a la Louis Vuitton or Dior, needs to establish his own signature, which is what Kim Jones did very well. And that's why he will go to, you know, higher pasture or whatever. But I think probably Chris has never been covered, as you say, he's never been recognized, probably because of that. Maybe he was trying too much to either adapt himself to the new women's designer or
separate himself from
I don't know. What do you think? Because it's true that you don't really recognize his style. And probably that's why this last collection was one of my favorite, the one I noticed the most, the one where I said, oh, I want to do a head-to-head on him.
I want to talk about it.
Because there was something very interesting about it.
I think with him, he's always done really great stuff. But I mean, who would you say is your menswear client? I can't think of a person. I mean, the people they have representing them, kind of the people they pay to be in the advert.
I don't know,
From the Pet Shop Boys to Robert Pattinson to A$AP Rocky. It's not even like their communication is that. It doesn't feel like they have a man, and it doesn't necessarily. And Dior or Maria Grazia at Dior is very obviously a woman. It's a younger woman. It's a socialite, and it's amazing. It's a real woman. Whereas I don't feel he has his man yet. Or maybe
you know, it's not easy to follow on Haider's. Especially, like it or not, what Haider did for men's fashion with Dior Homme. You know, and then suddenly it's someone else, and everybody's like, oh, where's Haider? You know, that's why when he was appointed to Celine, I said at least nobody's going to say that he's going to copy Phoebe, because he's not going to copy Phoebe. So at least, you know, and probably Chris, who's a great designer, I think, he's a great professional, probably didn't have the personality to follow on Haider's steps.
I mean, it's that age-old question. What do you do when you get a house? Do you look backwards, or do you look forwards, or do you do a bit of both?
That's what you need to know when you're self-assured.
I mean, I've kind of, whether it's weird or not to do so, I have if I was in that position, I got given a house, which is never going to happen because I'm not a designer. But you know, what would you do?
We would love to see that. What would you do?
But like, would you try and go back? And I think it's actually a very clever idea to hark back to the original founder, which you see a lot in women's wear. You know, Galliano had a bar jacket, Maria Grazia had a bar jacket, everyone's had a bar jacket.
Yeah, but don't forget that Dior has a very recognizable and known story. But again, to talk about Phoebe and Celine, when she took over at Celine, she knew that, she knew that, I mean, who knows who misses Celine, whatever, who knows, you know, and so, exactly.
He had a blank slate because no one was paying attention.
And so, you know, so it's a different thing, and I guess when you get the Dior job, you also ask from Avenue Montaigne to remember who Dior was, and to remember the bar jacket and
how long was
the Lady D bag, and you know, it's not as easy. Maybe for men's,
I mean, there's not that much. I mean, there is such a history with Dior, but he was only alive for 10 years, was it? It wasn't.
He's been one of the shortest.
And then there was everybody's asked to hark back to original Monsieur
Yeah, but
Dior.
he did. That's where you see he gained immortality because it was so important. In what he did.
But I mean, obviously, great designers are super creative and they can pull whatever out of whatever. But there's a finite amount of stuff that Dior did. And it's hard to ask everyone to go back to it, especially when you're getting to an age when references are so... Everyone references everything. You know, you see photographers for a shoot and they'll be referencing 500, 300, they'll have 200 images that they're referencing. It's the same with designers. I mean, you have, you know, rooms bigger than these rooms with 3 boards deep covered in images. I mean, when I worked in houses, there's an insane amount. So to ask someone to keep referencing the same thing, it does or can feel played out. So I guess that, to try and link it in, that's one of the strong things about this. This does feel new, even though it isn't extremely played out reference.
I couldn't agree more, because we're talking about references here, so maybe we'll move on to the whole week and maybe even the whole season. But I thought that Paris was the proof that everybody is referencing the same thing. and it's annoying, and not to say pathetic, how everybody's trying to be the one who's the most successful at the moment. And I'm tired of doing the same, quoting the same person, mentioning the same person, but it's a reference game.
Yeah.
And it's becoming a little bit too referential, if I may.
You hear stories about designers keeping their collection and their fabrics on hold until Prada shows. I've heard that from multiple people.
I never heard this one.
Yeah, people put to see what Miuccia does.
Is it still Miuccia, or there's now a little bit of Demna, or a little bit of Alessandro, or a little
when I heard this was happening, this was 2-3 years ago. So when I heard this was happening, Demna wasn't such a thing, and I just remember it being Miuccia, but and it wasn't where I was working, but I remember I was interning at Margiela, and obviously all the interns in Paris know each other because you're all kind of working around the same places.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing of certain brands that were saying, no, we have to wait to see what Prada sets. Honestly. And these are big Paris houses. Well,
I know that Miuccia is a big reference for many, and it's correct, because it's one of the great innovator, but I didn't know it was down to that level. Yeah, because it's like the retailer of the high street, that they only do things that it can reference to the big brands. Yeah. So that would be a pity, wouldn't it?
I think business is catching on as well to how fast this industry is moving. At first it was just people were just really worried about the creatives, but actually the business people as well have to make sure that everything is merchandised to an inch of its life to be super sellable. And like, for example, with Dior, they had crossbody bags. I'm actually wearing a similar one today, but it had 4 different pouches on it, and they were all interchangeable, so you could buy that color and buy more and swap them on, and it was a lot of
Which brings me to the other point, where the more I look at shows, the more I think that it's more styling and hype and Instagrammable looks than real fashion and real ideas and real innovation. And apart from a few that we're going to mention now, or hopefully we're going to mention the same, but it's a little bit too far. And also I think it's the digital era that makes it
not as important to have great product, because you have to have a great image first.
Exactly, but you need great photos, and that's a tiny bit of a pity for fashion itself.
No, for actual.
But let's move on to what you thought was worth mentioning. I have my own, but I need to know your generation and your take on this.
Louis Vuitton, without a doubt, was.
We agree on this one.
We
did a whole
so I'll try and keep it short. But I mean, the fanfare of being there, the whole Palais Royal was closed off, and there were people screaming outside.
That's the power of Louis Vuitton and Kim Jones.
When David Beckham walked through, it was a real thing. And then Kate Naomi coming out, and then I went.
You were there, actually.
Yeah, I was there. It was just fab. It was really amazing. The clothes were insane, and seeing them, and we went to the showroom afterwards. Touching everything was just
perfect quality,
another level of luxury, and and those cycling shorts there. If you take a photo of them, the LV logo and monograms in 3M, so it's super Instagrammable, but also super chic, and aspirational and clever, and a great way of doing it. The bags are just like the metal bags. Just to die
What about those hiking boots / cowboy boots?
I mean, they're like the perfect shoe of the moment. Yeah. I mean, I have size 14.5 feet UK, so I have to not look at shoes because I get really sad because I can never have them.
So you only can have tailor-made shoes?
I can just about get Converse in my size. And that's kind of it.
14.5?
Yeah. So I can't look at shoes.
I can put 2 of my feet in your shoes.
So I try not to look at the shoes, but it was incredible.
So this was not merchandising more than fashion, right?
I mean,
this was real fashion, well styled.
Well done, incredibly made. I mean, it's Vuitton, it's not ever going to be shoddily made. But just seeing also when I saw that on its own compared to when I saw Dior separated away from its looks, every piece I wanted to try on and interact with.
Do they actually then put it in stores?
Well, Louis Vuitton is not. As far as I'm aware, they're not the best at putting their runway stuff on the thing.
The women's stuff that I love is never in the stores.
I mean,
Luckily,
apparently
because it's
New York,
expensive.
apparently New York has better runway. Like apparently Prada's store in New York is 70% runway. And apparently in New York they're better because people buy it. But realistically, if you go down the road that Colette was on, if you go into Gucci and Prada and all of that, it's sunglasses, perfume, bags.
But even here it's a little bit more than sunglasses and perfumes and bags because they have these big stores. I'm thinking now, Prada and Vuitton, there's very rarely the standout pieces of the fashion show.
Yeah, never.
While at Gucci, you've got everything that you saw on the show in the store, so it's quite interesting. So what else? What about the much talked about Vetements show?
So that, I mean, with that, it was. It's super hard. So when I saw it, every item had 7 layers. Every look had about 7 layers on, and it was very much. If Lotte, who stars it and also opened the show, it very much felt. I might as well have gone and had her name on it because I couldn't tell what the clothes were. I could just see her styling, because you don't know if that double-layered jacket, for instance, is sewn in, or if it's 2 things that she's styled together. You couldn't really tell. You get a vibe.
That's what Lotte does.
It's a fun vibe. It's a cool thing to be at that show. It's
but also
fun.
the
There's
very strong references to Margiela. I mean, are we talking... Yeah, but I mean, he also spoke about that. So my question to you is this ironic because everybody said, oh, it's Margiela, while it was successful, or is this pure thievery?
Well, it's ironic if you do a tabby shoe. It's thievery if you sell it and they've got 20 colorways of the tabby shoe in their showroom and it's available to buy.
So it's clever irony, commercially clever irony. Because, you know, he's been, I mean, we can't deny that Demna has done a lot for where fashion is today, and all his success is deserved. He's been attacked a lot about, you know, the Margiela reference, where actually everybody has had a mentor and a tutor. So, you know, I was quite protective of him. But when he does this, I honestly wonder loud. I mean, is this sarcastic? Is this ironic? Or not?
But realistically, I don't think the Vetements customer cares. I really don't think that the people who are buying Vetements...
He cares. Everybody cares about what says about you, you.
But it's already being said about him, so why not play up to it? It's not like that's going. It's not like that's
going
to go.
So he's lifting his middle finger to us, to the press.
Which it did feel a bit like. And when I went into the showroom again, so much product and
what do they sell actually then?
They sell pretty much all of it, but I mean, that was where they said, "Oh, this skirt was made from an umbrella," and I'm like, "That's interesting. You know, that's very Margiela, take an umbrella." And I felt it, and they hadn't taken a pattern from an umbrella. They had taken a €2 umbrella and sewn it in. And you know, there's one thing about being really clever and taking the pattern from an umbrella, but to actually just sew a €2 umbrella into it and do 2 side seams to make it a skirt and sell it for €1,000 is another thing, and it's not.
But is it not a little bit like art? When you're a great artist, you can sell a line by pencil on a piece of paper because you are Picasso, and so that has a value. It's a moment of Picasso. I mean, of course, Demna has been around not as long, but is it what he banks on?
That does have a value if you do it once and you present this as that, but when it's in with 200 other pieces of clothing that are all of the same moment and of the same idea, it devalues that one piece.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
There's so much of
I understand. And what about, like, we just saw a denim jacket, very big, oversized, and that's what he created, you know, the oversized whatever. But that denim jacket probably cost £600 or £700.
Yeah, around, if not more.
And, okay, explain to me when you see it in real life, where is the value? Apart from the labels that say Vetements.
It is that label. And I don't have I actually don't have so much of a, you can justify your price at whatever, you can justify your time. You know, it might not be the cost of material, but if you value your time so highly, then you can charge as much as you want for something, because you also have to factor in everyone's time, all of that kind of cost. And I understand that, and realistically, if people want to pay that, that's totally fine. But then it's one thing for the price of it when it gets to the consumer, because realistically, consumers can choose not to buy it. If they have a problem with it, it's not going to sell. But this will sell. because you're buying into the idea.
So somehow it's right.
And yeah, I mean, it's in that way, but when you're, but
Yeah.
it should, I mean, I thought it was clever when they presented separately in couture, because it is kind of its own thing.
It is. I personally am very, very, very happy that it does Balenciaga, because I have a little soft spot for them, no?
Yeah.
And what it's done and how clever he is. When he talks, I love his interviews, and I absolutely love what he does for Balenciaga, so I can allow myself not to love Vetements that much now, but because I have him somewhere else.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think one of the problems is, and the reason this looks less Balenciaga, or Balenciaga looked like Vetements, and there was all that whole thing, is what's the difference?
No, now you can see the difference.
Now you can see the difference, which I think is important, because actually before, why would you spend £3,000 on a Vetements camel coat, which probably isn't as well made because they don't have the minimums, whereas Balenciaga, who produce their own stuff, will have the minimums. Yeah. A coat designed by the same designer, very similar, that looks very similar, is actually €1,000 less.
Yeah, paradoxically, Balenciaga is cheaper than Vetements. Yeah. Well, Balenciaga also has access to the Kering factories in Novara, where everything else is. So, I mean, of course, there is an economy of scale that probably Vetements should know they don't have access to the Kering.
No. Well, they don't seem, the prices don't reflect as if they do.
No, the prices are very high. I must say, I have 2 pair of shoes and 2 dresses by Vetements, but it's the early Vetements.
Yeah.
Now, I'm more towards what he does for Balenciaga.
Yeah, as am I. I mean, what I did like in here, and what I've always liked from him, is his suits. I actually think his suits are really great, because we started talking about Dior and the suits. They still don't feel, you know how everyone's putting pockets in couture.
Yeah.
The men's suits that seem really rigid, it's a bit like that. It doesn't feel like you can live in it, whereas the Vetements suits are super fucked up and super wide and all of that, and you can live and you can move in them, whereas the Dior suits are so rigid.
It's a totally different story, yes.
And I guess that's why I'm more drawn to that, because, I mean, tomorrow I'm going to New York and I'm going to be traveling, and I can't really fit much in my suitcase and all of that. This leans towards my lifestyle way more than a Dior menswear bar jacket does.
Yeah, but again, I think that's a very good point, because it means that Vetements is for people like you and your lifestyle, and people more into the fashion or into the street arts, whatever, than the classic man that still has to wear classic.
Yeah.
And it's important that they still can buy some clothes somewhere.
Yeah.
More fashionable than, having them tailor-made, or less expensive than having them tailor-made. So it's completely different stories, and I do believe that the world needs both.
Completely.
And before closing, I would like a word on the work that Haider Ackermann is doing for Berluti.
I mean,
which I think is outstanding.
It's a different thing. It's not
different in a positive or negative
way?
So
this was shown straight after Vetements. Okay. And Vetements took everyone outside the city. It was far out.
But everybody had to rush there.
Lots of people missed Berluti because
it was so good.
It was. I mean, again, I didn't go. Georgie was supposed to go. She got locked out because
she couldn't get there on time.
No one could get there. It was Friday night rush hour in Paris. You couldn't get anywhere. But it's just.
Did you go to the showroom?
I didn't manage to show him. I went to his actual show and I met him. And first time I met him, he's
lovely. I know.
So lovely and just so true.
But look at this. And this is so right for the brand. This is a perfect example.
But this is the perfect
of someone who respects the brand by putting his own signature.
Yeah.
And this is genius, I think.
But I also think that what we're talking about is like Vetements has the super oversized, livable stuff, and then Dior's is super tailored, like doesn't particularly feel comfortable.
This is
the mix. This is, if I have £2,000, it's just gorgeous.
The materials, the subtle coloring, and it's just gorgeous, exactly. And I think this brand needs to be just gorgeous. I mean, Vetements doesn't need to be just gorgeous. Vetements needs to push the boundaries, to push it forward, to shock. This needs to be gorgeous, and I think, once again, LVMH, they were genius in casting.
Yeah.
And Haider is doing it so well.
No, I mean, it's the most inviting, the most beautiful. It's not going to move on leaps and bounds, as you say, but it doesn't need to be, and you don't need everyone pushing the front.
No.
You also don't need people lagging behind. He's just where he needs to be, and it's not even in that
but
line.
Everybody wants to buy this. Yeah.
It's, and it is just it's just another world. And even that background, like that color is so gorgeous, and it doesn't look like anything else. That color, like it doesn't look like that purple from Prada.
That's where he's a master.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything that I've seen, but it still looks familiar and comfortable and
I'm glad you agree, because I was a little bit worried about, not worried, but I thought about bringing these up to you, would say, oh no, it's boring. Actually, you understand.
This is aspirational.
And how good it is.
This is highly aspirational and something that I'd love, you know, when and if I ever have to work in an office to wear suits, that's what I want to wear. That leather single-breasted overcoat with a green turtleneck. That's fab.
I can't wait to see you in Veluti by Haider Ackermann. Well,
those will be the days.
Thank you so much, and hope to see you again.
That'll be enough.